You're tuned in to the world of Tom, where you catch all the facts and stay connected with Tom Lane.
Welcome to In the World of Tom. I'm Tom Lane, and this evening I have the wonderful, strong, and phenomenal Ms. Joanne Bland. Ms. Joanne Bland is a community activist and currently owns a touring company that tours along the Civil Rights Trail called Journeys for the Soul, which I will link the website to the description box, and you can feel free to sign up and get your own personal tour as well. Joanne is also known to be one of the youngest protesters jailed during the 1960s civil rights movement, and is also the co-founder and former director of the National Voting Rights Museum in Selma, Alabama. Ms. Jo, how are you?
I'm just fine, sweetheart. It's so good to see you after all these years.
Good to see you too. I'm so glad to see you. How long has it been? Like 20 years?
Oh my God. Just you still look like a teenager.
Oh, thank you. To get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about what you do?
That's one of my best subjects, me. Born and raised in Selma, Alabama. Selma is a small rural town right smack dab in the middle of Alabama. I grew up doing segregation. I also grew up poor. Segregation was not a nice period in this history because of in the history of the United States. Because of the color of my skin, I couldn't do a lot of things that we take for granted today, such as trying on clothes, going in any restaurant you want to spend your money. We couldn't do a lot of those things. And there were laws that prevented us. It wasn't that you didn't, that someone said you couldn't do it. There were laws of segregation. We called them Jim Crow laws. So my mom died in the halls of the White Hospital here. She needed a blood transfusion. And the hospital, the Black hospital in Burwells didn't have her blood type. And the blood had to be ordered from Birmingham, which is 90 miles away from here, so that my mom could get her transfusion. But by the time the blood got here, it was too late. My mom was gone, and my baby brother in her tummy too. My grandmother came back from Detroit to my mom's funeral, and she stayed to help rear us. There was four of us, along with my dad. And my grandmother had lived in the Midwest, so she knew. At that time, we called it up north. She enjoyed some freedoms that we in Detroit that we didn't have in the South. She could try on clothes. She could go in restaurants and stuff. Not to say, I know there were places she couldn't go because of the color of her skin, even in Detroit, but she had more freedom than we did. When she came back to Selma, she could not believe we were still in the same shape. So she started talking to the women in our community, and they introduced her to a lady named Amelia Boynton. Mrs. Boynton and her husband, Samuel, recognized early on that if we could vote, we could change some of those laws that were unfair to us. And they formed an organization in the early 1930s called the Dallas County Voters League, and set about trying to register African Americans in this community to vote. And that's how I got involved in the movement, because grandmother would take us to the meetings. She would take us to the meetings. And we had to sit at the feet of those history makers while they strategized on how they was going to do this thing called freedom. Now, personally, I thought they were the dumbest old people in America. I already knew Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. My teacher told me, and my sisters told me. So why were they fighting for freedom and we already have it? Whenever I would ask, so no one could explain it. And one day we were downtown on Broad Street, and my grandmother was talking to one of her friends. We were standing in front of Carter's drugstore. Carter's had a lunch counter at that time when I was growing up, but I couldn't sit at the lunch counter, but I wanted to. Every time I passed by, I see those white kids sitting there. on those spinning around on those stools, licking those ice cream cones, and I wish it was me. This particular day, while grandmother was talking, I was peeping in the window, wishing it was me sitting there. My grandmother noticed it. She leaned over my shoulder and she pointed to the counter and she said, when we get our freedom, you can do that too. I became a freedom fighter that day because I understood it was a different freedom than the one that Abraham Lincoln had given me.
How would you say the world has changed today compared to when you was coming up during the civil rights movement era and the freedom writers era?
A lot has changed and a lot has not changed. It would be ludicrous to say we didn't make strides. It's just that we had so far to go that we just aren't where we need to be. Some of the same things that we were fighting against in the 50s and 60s are the same things that we are fighting today. My dad asked me, what's this racial profiling stuff they keep talking about? I explained it to the best of my ability. And you know what my dad did?
What?
He started laughing, Tom. He started laughing. I thought, there were times when I was growing up, I thought he was crazy. I knew he was crazy then. I said, Daddy, that's not funny. He said, it's funny to me. He says, it was a way of life when I was growing up. Now you guys have a big fancy name for it. And every generation renames it. Now it's driving while black. It's the same problem. It's the same problem. You name it, the new generation think because it has a new name and they don't know about the past because it's not taught to them. They don't know. They don't know about the past, so they can't recognize it's the same thing. Police brutality has been here since African Americans have been on this soil.
Right.
That's nothing new. Us Ulsters, we recognize that. But because now you could see it in real time and realize we were not just crying wolf. You think it's a new thing. It's not.
It's not, yeah.
Start from scratch trying to get rid of it instead of building on what we already did.
What would you advise us young mothers and fathers that are needing to help carry that torch and keep that history alive? Give us some advice as far as the best way to instill it in our own children.
One, you're gonna have to augment your children's education. I started with white European history. When I started school, I ended high school with white European history. Where's my place in this history? Oh yeah, they talked about slavery. They didn't talk about all my accomplishments. They didn't talk about any of that by people who look like me. So where does a child get self-worth? You're gonna have to be the ones. You're gonna have to be the ones to teach them that. And I cannot stress enough how important it is to teach your children economics now. That you can't just continually give your money away and have nothing to show for it. Things that wear out quickly. And you spend all this money for it. Our children don't know how to earn things anymore. You got to give them money and teach them how to use that money. But you got to lead by example. You can't be a spendthrift and telling your child you can't spend your money. You need to save yours. You need to save yours too.
Okay.
So, put emphasis on making our children way around it, and that's not what happens. Because face it, children are with teachers and others during the week more than they are with us.
And speaking on the interview that you had this morning, you also said that the youth need a platform, need to be able to tell you all things, and you all have an open ear. And I've always said that, like, why, as even a 30-year-old woman, why am I still treading lightly to just simply be honest? But and when I'm feeling like I'm being honest, even if I'm delivering it like I'm talking to you, I'm still in some way disrespectful. Like I have to hinder some honesty in order to to get my point across, and I don't like that. So I feel like my question is, how can we go about getting that platform? How can we go about getting our message, or just how we feel about everything going on in the world, or just with us and our mental health? How can we get that across where people like you or our elders will listen to us and help us?
I don't waste my time with people who don't listen, and you should either.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody's going to listen to you and think um, you have a point of view. Not everybody's going to do that. Some people are so old school and stuck in their ways that they're not going to listen. You can forget it. So don't be, and it'll tire you out, huh? You keep running up against a wall. Someone's going to have to keep you motivated to do it. People keep saying no, and you realize they're not listening. You don't need to sugarcoat your way. What worked for us would not, I truly believe, would not work for you today. I'm serious about that, and I don't care how many old people jump on me about it. What worked for us will not work for us today. You guys are in that instant.
Instagram.
No, that instant. You want it right then. You don't.
Well, you're not the only person that has said that. I have a coworker that said the same thing. She's like, "You young people, y'all want it right now. Y'all want it so fast."
Oh, you can organize millions with just one text.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have any of that. But we got the right to vote. We got rid of separate accommodations. We accomplished a lot. But we became complacent.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, you live it every day. You know the problems, and I promise you, if I knew the solutions, they would already be done. I know some people who, well, I think you should be doing this, and I'm not one of those, Tom, because I don't know if it was. Listen, if I knew it would already be done, I'd be popping my collar. You understand?
Okay.
Gave me big bucks to tell you how I did it. All right. But I don't know, and I don't think anyone else does. I do know that one of the things young people are doing, they're organizing. And when you organize, you got a whole think tank to pull from. And you put those ideas together. You come to the table with those ideas on how you're going to solve this problem. And then you put them in action. But come together on the action, right? And find a way to get your truth out. Your truth. One of the problems I think I had with Black Lives Matter, they got branded because of people who probably were not even part of their organization. They did that in the 60s. And I think if they had known that, they would have been, I don't know how they could have stopped it, but they would have been aware of it. That those are not people doing that. Those are people who came to disrupt this and probably got paid to do it, right? Because police can only respond to violence, right? If nobody does anything, they won't have an excuse to beat the whole crowd. And the whole crowd didn't do anything, just those few over there. You notice the cameras are always on the looters.
Yeah, they are.
And most of their faces didn't look like yours or mine. So just troublemakers, but you didn't have a way to counteract that national media to get your truth out, to let people know on a major level that this is not us. This is what we're doing, and we're not going to stop because you branded us with them, because you think we're thugs and whatever, and gangsters or whatever.
Militia group. Just like they say about Black Panthers, militia groups and all of that, but that's not what we are. Most of us, that's not what we are. Right.
Period. We just want a fair, just world, just like everybody else, for our children and our communities. So I don't understand. And I'm not to know. I'm just telling you my opinions now. These are my opinions, and they're not anyone else's. And before your guests, the people who listen to you, your audience, jumps on, I'm talking what I believe. Not
Right.
what you believe, but what I believe.
Right. How would you say that your involvement in the civil rights movement strengthened your faith?
Oh my Lord. um,
I know you got some good stories because I remember our tour. Oh, by the way, my cousin Andrew, I don't know if you remember him, Real Chocolate and Goofy. He wanted me to ask if there was a slave trade building that we went to.
right,
And it was a
right.
you said the museum, and we got on a boat, and I forget the black lady's name, but she gave us a whole experience, and you took
Her
us.
name is Apria. We can do this.
Okay, okay,
She's still doing it. She's still,
really?
yeah, she's still doing it. And I've been through it at least 200 times. For the
Yes,
audience who don't know what we're talking about, here in
yeah,
Selma, not only do we have the National Voting Rights Museum and, of course, my wonderful tours, but
uh-huh,
we also have by the river Center for Humanities. And it at that center, the director does a slave reenactment.
okay,
And it's so powerful. I've been through that at least 100 times, Tom, and I still cry
yeah,
um, because she makes you the slave. And no matter how you felt about slavery, when what you thought you felt about slavery, it's different when you come out. And that
yeah.
goes for everybody, black, white, purple, orange. In fact, I was at her place yesterday with the bus. But
Oh,
because it takes all of that, and it's because that's not ancient history, that's not black history, that's American history. We opened the National Voting Rights Museum without any money, and we opened our slavery museum, the Enslavement and Civil War Museum, without any money, because we felt the need to tell our side of slavery. I got sick of hearing those good master stories. How are you going to be a good master? Thinking you own another human being. That be a good master. You didn't beat your slaves. Let
right.
one run away and see that you either beat him or had him beat. Right.
Mhm.
There's also a happy slave. How can you be a happy slave? Who's enslaved that can be happy? No, when they said if either you were gonna get beat or punished, if they said you didn't smile while we were taking this picture, you smiled. You showed all of them because you got a hoe in your hand in the field and you a happy slave. Please, sun beating down on you.
It's hot, 90 degrees.
And I tell you another thing while we on that subject, Black
Mm.
History Month is not for us. It's an
What?
appeasement for them. It's not. It's for them. They
Hmm.
think, they gave us something to
Right.
celebrate us for a month. And the
Hmm.
shortest month, I'm offended.
This month of the year.
I'm offended when I'm black 365 days a year. And I was here when that good master was around. You
Hmm.
know, I was here when Columbus came. We don't even talk about what they did to the Indians, but they'll tell us to go back to Africa. Well, when you go back to England, that's when I'm going back to Africa. I'm an American just like you. You came and stole this land.
Hmm.
That's been my teaching, to teach people, all people, where this nation has been, so they'll know where to take us.
Hmm.
Because if you don't know where we're being, you destined to make the same mistakes over and over.
It'll be a cycle. And when will it
Right.
end?
Just don't know you know the solutions yet. You
We
you
trying
just
to
don't
figure it
know.
out, Miss Joe.
I
We're out
know.
here with the little bit of guidance that we have from our parents, and then the guidance that we have from our schools and our universities. Like we said earlier, HBCUs are becoming a thing. Like it's becoming popular to be a part of that Black history. That's
Yet
one
the
thing that
funding
we can
is not.
still be a part of today that is still current and relevant. So, I think that I think we're all going on the right path. We have a vision, us being
Oh
able
yeah.
to witness the police brutality and all of these trials and things and the protests and being, like I said, being able to live in our own civil rights movement. this is guiding us and it's shaping and molding us in ways that we don't even recognize. You know what I mean? So I think you all are doing the best that you can. And with that, you just keep on encouraging your neighbor to encourage us. So that way we can continue to carry this thing. And I can pass it on to my baby as well.
People need to listen. People need to listen to you guys. Just listen. And you'll be like, they're really smart. They're really smart. You don't mind. You don't hold on to something when you know it can grow with somebody else. A lot of old people say that this generation's going to hell in a handbasket. That's because you didn't do nothing to help stop them. If you believe that, you didn't do anything. I believe social movements are like jigsaw puzzles. Everyone is a piece. And if your piece is missing, Tom, is the picture complete?
No.
No, why?
Because I need to be a part of it.
Because you're the most important piece.
I am. I'm valuable, Miss Jo. I am valuable. I mean something.
Everyone should carry themselves like they're the most important piece because you are. Yes. You are. Where's your piece in the puzzle for social change?
That is a good question to propose. I might have to use that in my writing competition.
Okay.
I like that because I got a writing competition coming up for Juneteenth, and I like that.
But I think my faith was strengthened because of what we went through, the things that we went through. And during that time, the civil rights movement was centered around the church, remember? The center of the movement always was. And I'm still hurt that our churches have gotten away from that. You had a ready audience to better the community right there. And it's not good enough to just tell me your version of the Bible. You got to interpret it in a way that people are active, that they know that faith is an action word, not one that you bring to church on Sunday and leave it there and pick it up the next Sunday when you come back, because we have our regular pews we sit in. Anybody else sit in them, we ain't happy about it. So HBO did a show here called We Are Here. And I did an interview with three of the stars of the show. One was from Texas, the third year of the RuPaul drag show.
Okay.
He won. It was Bob. But we had a white one that we had the interview with. And what an enlightening that was to me. And because they discussed how they are discriminated against. And no matter what you believe in, African Americans and people of color should be the last people to discriminate against anybody. So I tried to understand where they were coming from. I felt their pain. I really did. I don't know. I believe in a higher being, and I believe that he's the judge of all, not us. We are modern mortals cannot be the ones who judge people for their actions. Okay? And I just learned so much from them, because that's a facet of our society that, that we even shun. Even as Christians, sometimes we put people out of the church because of that. When my sister became pregnant when she was 15 years old. They didn't want her to come to church because she would. What kind of Christian is that? How do we turn people away? Because they're different from us. That's the same thing others have done to us.
Right. So I take away from that you're saying that we need to basically take that step back and look into the mirror, and the same way we don't want to be treated, we don't treat others. Like, what is that saying? You treat those how you want to be treated. So just simply remembering that and instilling that in your children, so that way, you're passing on the kindness, you're passing on those, just for me, those basic morals of knowing how to treat your neighbor, regardless of sin.
You got it. Yeah. You got it. Because if we don't, we're lost as a people. Now, I had my ideas of not being comfortable
Mm-hmm.
with people who were different,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially people in that queer world, right? That because all my life I've been taught to judge others. How can that's exactly what it is. We're
Right.
judging others because they're different, and that's the same thing that happens to us.
Yeah.
So how can we know the pain of oppression and then oppress?
Right.
You're just not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now God's not through with me yet. Now I'm
No,
not
he's not.
totally understanding,
Yeah.
but I'm not totally just pushing it away like I used to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I used to do. That's nasty or that's whatever, right?
Right.
But
Right.
I'm not doing that anymore because what you say, treat people as what?
As you want to be treated. Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Golden
ma'am.
rule.
Yes, ma'am. So, in that case, with saying that, as a community, how can we better support you and support Journeys of Soul?
Well, one thing I always advocate that you bring young people to me. Bring them to me and let me walk them through this. History becomes real when you hear it and you
Mm,
walk through it, and because 1965 was 56 years ago.
right.
Those children can't connect to 1965 by reading it out of a book or watching the movie Selma.
So,
They need
okay.
to walk in this history, see this that it wasn't that
Feel
long
it.
ago. We're
Yes.
still here. We're
Hmm.
still here. It becomes real. Okay. The other thing is that one of the things another project I'm working on is the Foot Soldiers Park. I think a lot of people know the generals of the movement. I think I talked to you guys about this when you were here, and I'm still talking about it. They know people like John Lewis, who went on to become a major icon in these United States. They know people like Dr. King, but how many of them know Amelia Boynton?
Right.
How many of them know that this movement was fought by the foot soldiers? Dr. King may have been here five times at the most, and I'm being generous.
Yeah.
This movement, the right to vote, was captured by young people and women because our fathers went to work. But the
Mm,
way our history is written, it makes us look like Dr. King was here every day doing this and saying, "You go, Joanne, you go here, Tom, you go there." It wasn't
mm,
like that.
yeah.
The movement was fought by ordinary people, and that's what our children don't know. They don't
No.
teach that.
Yeah.
They'll teach them about Martin Luther King. Say he had some mass meetings and we sung songs. And then we
Hmm.
marched on the bridge and we got the right to vote. That is a whole history book between that. And we're gonna have to learn to teach our children this history and
Yeah.
about ordinary people who made that history.
I
Yes.
think that's what attracted me to your museum, like just got me locked into your museum, is that you focused on that. Because even when we talked about Rosa Parks, you also reminded us of the young lady who
Claudette.
King,
Claudette Cole.
Claudette, and you reminded us of that. You actually, I mean, I'm guaranteeing we had no clue before you said that and showed us pictures and showed us proof, and you explained to us that how the civil rights movement was, this organization, this business, and at the end of the day they needed a face, and they chose Rosa Parks to be that face versus Claudette, when
Who was
Claudette was
pregnant.
the
Who was
right,
pregnant.
who was
15
pregnant.
years old and pregnant.
Yeah.
15 years old and pregnant. I remember I told you about the time we burned down the shed at my granddaddy's house. And
Uh,
every time we went to family reunion, they brought that up. None of the good stuff I had done since
mhm.
then. That just they remember the bad thing.
I still talk about you to this very day. I tell people, complete strangers, people that I'm just meeting, I've been in a relationship for the last 3 years, he knows about you. So, I mean, you are effective. you know. So I don't know if anyone is even, I don't know how many people has given you your flowers, but I want to give you your flowers from Missouri because you have, I remember being in, I want to say the 6th grade, and I can have my daddy back me up on this, but I remember coming back from the A trip and I had a paper to write, and you was the story that I was trying to write, and it had to be perfect, you know. So just know that you influence us. As far as I feel like you influence the children going forward, your grandchildren moving forward, and us that's here in the back. So it's just giving us that power to keep on spreading that story, telling people, because I cannot wait. I cannot absolutely wait to bring my baby to your museum. Like I can't wait for her to get on your bus or any of that, because if it had not been for my mom and the other adults that were a part of that organization that made us come down there and visit you and get that type of lesson, I think my mama and them even got a shock when they first met you. That's why they kept bringing us back.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was almost, he was dropping the kids off with the auntie. Like, here y'all go, y'all fine. She gonna handle
They
y'all.
stand over there and be quiet. They stand over there and be quiet. They had something to say. Who you talking to? You better be stand over there and be quiet. They're mine now. They're gonna be mine until they do. But I thank you for your wonderful comments about me. Because it's true, I want my flowers while I'm alive. I can't see those things after I die. And
Okay.
I'm so proud of you. And I know your mom is looking downstairs. She's with Miss Bland again. She all right. So I know she is. And she did a fantastic job with you. I'm really, really proud of you. And you can, every time you need me, you just pick up that phone. And may take
I
a
like
minute.
now, so it's nothing. I'm coming to see you. I'm coming to knock on your door. I'm coming walk up in there like I'm your niece.
You're grown now. We can have a glass of wine, okay?
Okay, I am grown. I can.
Yeah,
Look,
you're grown now.
like I'm grown too.
Yeah.
So before I let you go, I do want, we did say that I wanted to shine a little light on the young people and the youth that are going to HBCUs here starting this fall, and that how HBCUs and attending them are being celebrated in the way that they're being celebrated in the last few years, and that it's just a humongous deal to be accepted in universities such as Lincoln University or Howard and Spelman. So for those young people that are graduating and stepping into their adulthood, do you have anything that you would like to say?
I think all children of color should go to HBCUs. I also think that we should be fighting for more funding for HBCUs. Okay, some of them are hurting. We have an HBCU here that was erected. Selma University was erected in 1878, and they get less funded than anyone. And our children, we went to that. Why don't you go to Selma University? They won't go. They'll go to Howard. They'll go to Xavier. They'll go to Alabama State, Alabama A&M, but they won't go to Selma University.
Right.
Just as we celebrate our children when they get into Harvard, we should celebrate our children when they get into HBCUs, because the real world makes those preparations for you to get into the real world comes from being with people who look like you, who understand it, understand what you need to be a productive citizen. When you're at this predominantly white university, they have nothing for you, nothing. And we don't want HBCUs to go to the way of everything else. Everything seems to be aimed at wiping out our culture. The vice president of the United States went to Howard University. Now, if it was good enough for her, and she made it to the vice president, and I know one day she's gonna be our president, that you should be there. You should be seeking out your history, who you are, and getting that education to prepare you for the world. And look at the people who attended HBCUs. Okay, and I want people to strive to get to HBCU. Maybe that's a piece in the puzzle for social change. That because if you go to HBCU, you're going to get that background that's going to prepare you for the real world. And you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. You will teach your children what I'm talking about. And then we're going to have to lobby for more money for these institutions.
Yes, ma'am.
Harvard's not strong.
Work on that, because I know Lincoln University needs help, and it's so many bigger HBCUs that are getting that help that the smaller HBCUs are feeling a little bit left behind. Yeah. So I encourage all students who are tuning in right now to look into an HBCU. You can look at my HBCU segment, How I Survived Lincoln University, on YouTube as well. So that way you can just get some advice from there. But I advise all Black students and some white students, if you can't afford a PWI, to try out an HBCU. I met my best friend, Soraya, who is a white girl, at Lincoln University, and we are still great friends till this day. So, I mean, just because you go to HBCU doesn't mean that you don't have any diversity. You'll be surprised how diverse an HBCU is. So I encourage all students to go to a HBCU as well. To go ahead and take us on out, Miss Jo, I want to thank you again for sitting down with me and giving me some of your time. I love you and I appreciate you. And I just wish you all the best with everything that you're doing.
I love you too. And thank you. You're so kind for listening to Old Lady Rant. All right.
But I got ears and I want to listen. I'm nosy. You know, I got the questions. I
said something that would help, that won't end up on the editing floor. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Call me if you need me, sweetheart. Call me.
Yes, ma'am. With that being said, I want to thank everyone that's tuning in right now. Please remember to like, subscribe, and pass on the word. See you later.
My name is Kayla Lucas. I am the owner and founder of Suds and Leather Studio, and I am a proud supporter of In the World of Tommy.
Hey, smoking that dope from Edmond. We the new meth in Redmond. We ain't real blood, but we brethren. Run up a check and it's pending. She talking my news.
Tom Lane here. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe to this channel. Also, slap on that notification bell so that way you are the first to know when I post new content. Thumbs up your favorite and pass on the word.
Every Thursday with Tom